Welcome to the Career Conversations podcast. My name is Dr. Justin Edwards with the Office of Career Exploration and Development. This is a YSU podcast about career choices and the unexpected changes that we make along the way. I'm joined today by our co-host, Carla Matusi, a Career Development Coordinator here at YSU. Carla, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, Justin, and I'm very excited to be here. This is the second in our series in partnership with the Office of Alumni Events and our office. Today we have four panelists from a graduates of the Health and Human Services College.
Yes, absolutely. So you'll hear people say HHS.
That's right.
On campus. Stands for Health and Human Services. The full name is the Batanti College of Health and Human Services, and we've got four panelists with us who are alumni.
That's right. Today we have with us Hannah Kreitz, Jessica Williams, Ryan McNicholas, and Jennifer Pieren. So welcome everybody to campus. And as you may know from prior Career Conversations podcast, our focus is on the conversation and trying to connect how people end up in their careers that they are in or the positions that they are currently in. So we've prepared some questions for the alumni that we have here today. But before we get into that, I think it might be a good idea to start out by having our alumni do some of their introductions. So Hannah, why don't you go ahead and start for us?
Yeah, thank you, Carla. So my name is Hannah Kreitz. I am a graduate here at YSU, graduated in 2020 with 2 bachelor's degrees. One was in exercise science and then the other was in psychology. And currently I am a graduate student here for the physical therapy program, also completing my PhD, dual degree, and I am a graduate assistant at the Soklovov Honors College.
I actually don't know if I've ever heard anyone pronounce the name
correctly
or the honors college. Like that was you did a great job
No,
pronouncing
thank you. Practice.
My name is Jessica Williams. I graduated from YSU in 2015 with my bachelor's in social work and then again in 19 with my master's in social work. I am presently a supervisor at Trumbull County Children's Services, and that's located in Warren, Ohio. There I am an assessment supervisor, and I'm also a field educator for the University Partnership Program through the social work program here at YSU as well.
My name is Jennifer Pieren. I have 2 degrees also from YSU. My first degree is in dental hygiene, and then I also have a degree in allied health from Youngstown State University. I am currently the program administrator here at YSU for the dental hygiene program. So my life has kind of brought me back here to Youngstown to serve the program.
Hi, I am Ryan McNicholas. I am also a 2-time graduate of Youngstown State, much older than the other panelists here, by the way. So I graduated in 2005 with a bachelor's in exercise science, and then in 2008 with a master's in health and human services. I am currently the director of campus recreation here at Youngstown State University, where I've worked for about 10 years now.
That's nice. And you know, what's really interesting is we have a couple of the alumni here that actually have a higher education connection and some that don't. So it's going to be interesting to see how the paths have laid out, after their graduation. So one of the things that we always like to start with is, maybe this is a good question for Jennifer to start with, is when you were walking on campus today and maybe coming here as an alumni, could you maybe give us a little bit of an idea of what has changed on the campus since you graduated, and maybe some of the positive areas or things that you're appreciative that we now have at Youngstown State University?
Yeah, so actually quite a bit has changed and evolved and continues to be updated. I know Ryan said he was probably older than everybody else, but my first degree was in 2000, folks, so I'm a little bit older than everybody else maybe here. I didn't mention that. But, when I first started school here, it was in it was in the late 90s, and really it's to see campus kind of blossom almost. I mean, the new facilities that are coming up, and the different kind of initiatives that are taking place on campus right now. But this thing that still exists that I love about the university is the energy that we have here. So I still see the rock painted all the time, and I was a sorority member when I was here. I still see how active student government is. There's just so many things here on campus that students, I think, sometimes are not even aware that are happening, and when they come here, they really need to get involved.
Well, thank you for that. And maybe, Jessica, if you'd like to add to that too, when you walk on campus as an alumni, you know, where do your thoughts go? Does it go back to when you graduated, or what was your initial reaction?
I am so impressed by the changes that have been made on campus. I've graduated more recently than my co-parts, but when I lived on campus, I lived right here in Kilcawley. I actually lived in Leiden at one point, and I worked in both facilities as a resident assistant. And the changes that I see made on campus are absolutely insane. Even with the new housing complexes that have been built, even like down to things on the street, it's beautiful, and I think that is definitely going to help with retention and recruitment, because the campus is a place where people would want to be. When I was here, there was always things going on, always things happening. You referenced the rock. That was a thing for us too. But I really am just astonished by all of the updates and improvements, and I really think it's just going to make the campus that much more inviting and a place that people want to be.
You mentioned just even the streets.
Yes.
And I've said this on most of the podcasts that we've done at this point, but I like to reference the fact that I think one of the best things that's happened on campus from a aesthetic standpoint is burying those electrical wires on Wick Avenue. Right? Wick Avenue feels like such a college street nowadays with the nice lighting, the Ys on the ground. Like it's just there's so many nice components of feeling like it's a vibrant college campus.
It feels like a real centralized campus now. I love that.
And plus, I think it leaves a good first impression when you're coming to campus. You don't see the dilapidated lights fixtures or the wiring or things like that. So it's a place where students and others want to be.
Yeah, it feels like it's all kind of cohesive.
Right.
Yeah, and you know what we're talking about is a feeling. It's an emotion, and you know the emotions that evoke our memories come out, especially with alumni. And one of the things that we want to help our students who may be listening to this podcast is, how do I get to that point? How can I understand what my journey might be? And podcasts are hot right now, so this is the way to reach the students. And sometimes when we think of, some of you mentioned, you know, the getting to know people and things like that, we think of networking in a very specific manner. But there is a term called grassroots networking, which is really not the official way of networking, but maybe those people you meet along the way that you never thought were going to lead you in a different direction. So with that kind of frame in mind, and anybody is welcome to take this question to start, can you give an example of some people you met along the way throughout your time here at Youngstown State University that you didn't think was a networking experience, but ended up certainly being one?
So one person would be Dr. Amy Cosentino. So like I said, I'm a graduate assistant at the Honors College, but I was also a student member of the Honors College when I came in. I came in my spring semester of my freshman year to Honors, so I was a little, didn't really know what the honors was about. So when I met with Amy, I actually, talked to her about my concerns and job opportunities. And then right away, she offered me a position there at Honors. And that was just based off of, our conversation that we were having together. She got to know me a little bit more, and I was able to just network with her and then get that position, which led me here today.
So simply by talking to somebody, even though you were a young person, that wasn't your intent in that conversation.
Right.
But she knew about, the opportunity and kind of brought it to light to you.
Oh yeah. I mean, she definitely said, well, you could go on YSU's website, you could look up the job opportunities list. There's always students that are working at the rec, at the bookstore. She was like, but we also have an opportunity here for you if you would like to, apply. And then that's when I was, almost, yes, willingly, wanted to be a part of it.
Sounds good. Thank you for that. Does anybody else want to take that question?
I can also share. So my connection was way back when I first started here in 2010, which doesn't seem that long ago, I guess, right? So my connection was with a desk attendant in the dorm. I don't know that they still have them, but when I was here, they used to have someone staffing 24/7. It would be desk attendants during the day, and then in the evenings, the resident assistants would take over. And so I generally consider myself like an outgoing person, and so I had some dialogue with one of the desk attendants, which eventually led then to me applying for a position as well. And so I'm fresh out of high school. You know, I've had one previous job, but then it turned into now I'm employed at college while also going to school to get my degree where I live. So that definitely then transferred into me becoming a resident assistant down the line and making some connections within the housing community. So definitely started off as just a basic conversation that led to some job opportunities here at YSU.
Yeah. Well, so that commonality between getting work experience
Yes.
while being a student
Yes.
is such an important part of finding your voice, right? And as we build that story with not just exploratory students, but with all students throughout their time at YSU, it's so valuable to get that hands-on experience, even if it might not be directly in the field that we want to work.
Right.
But we're developing that sense of professionalism, that attitude that we want to take into the workforce with us. A professional wardrobe. We talk about wardrobe and what that means in different settings a lot. But let's I guess Jennifer, Ryan, if you have anything to share, mentors, people that you've networked with that you didn't know you were going to network with. Let's stay on that question.
I think some of the folks that I ended up networking with that I didn't anticipate, and I didn't realize the value in it at the time, is when I was a student, our student organization leadership and advisors, really, because truly they do kind of hold the keys to some opportunities that never really make it out into onto the job posting boards and things like that, and they're able to share those with the students. So I would tell the students to fully embrace becoming active on campus, becoming active in those professional organizations. That's one of the beautiful things about YSU, is that each one of our, especially in the health and human services, we have professional organizations that we belong to, and kind of getting students into that mode to belonging and also participating in advocating for their profession. I think that they'll find a lot of networking opportunities that way.
And very similar to the others' experiences, I think making that connection with several professors, former supervisors, and colleagues along the way has really shaped what I've become today. And some of those people I'm still very close with. One of those people is still my supervisor, so she's still my boss, and I work very closely with her, but she shaped me to become a recreation professional. So, but showing me and guiding me along the way to when I really had no idea everything included in that profession. So it was a great opportunity, and to expand my horizons to show me what else is out there.
Yeah.
Ryan, we're talking about Joy.
Yes,
I know we talked about Amy from the Honors College as well.
Correct.
Some of these really strong student advocates on campus to build connections with that are still doing that.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm going to add one thing too, because I just thought of another one. When I was coming back for my degree in allied health, I was actually asked to sit on the accreditation advisory board here at the university, and that was kind of my first taste at looking at the inner workings of accreditation, and that kind of led me to my interest in education, and that led me to kind of advancing my degree even past, what I had acquired here at YSU as well. So yes.
Yeah, and these are all moments that we remember within our own personal careers and career choices. And Justin, I know I mentioned this in one of our other podcasts, but the Chronicle of Higher Education's most recent publication, they had an article called New Pathways from College to Career. And when they surveyed first-year students and senior students, the concept of social capital building, which I guess would be another way of talking about networking, was the highest in percentage in regards to the career-related activities that they found the most useful. So our panel reflected already on this, but networking with alumni or professionals at 70%. Interviewing or shadowing 77%, and then discussing career with faculty members at 79%. So it's clear to see from the data and the most recent data as well that the grassroots networking or the discussions is still one of the best ways.
Yeah, and just again getting that hands-on experience, right? Whether it's a part-time job, whether it's an internship, whether it's research experience, any way to really feel yourself in that work environment is just so essential. I want to come back to a word that was used in the last conversation about advocating. Jennifer, you said learning to sort of advocate for the field, and I'm sort of interested. And I'm going off script already, Carla. We're 7.
Go for it, Justin.
No, we're like 10 minutes in, and I'm off script. Because I think there's something there that might have a unique layer to the health and human services professions that may be a little bit unique. Tell me more about what that word means, and can you just expand upon that?
Well, I think we're all sitting here and we all have that experience, that need to advocate for patients or clients, and that we have a society who is in great need of adequate and comprehensive health care, and again, coming out of health and human services and becoming healthy emotionally, physically, in a variety of different ways. So I think we teach our students to, again, be that person who will help them meet those goals. And I'm trying to look for what's another word for advocate, guys? I'm trying to look around here. Like you said, explain it. But I mean, to help them essentially meet their health goals. So and step up and empowering them. That's it. Thank you. See, we're already there. So empowering them. But I think beyond that, we also have to kind of teach our students, and this is something I learned as a student, how important it is to advocate for our professions as well. Because we're kind of all in different situations where we are considered a nice complement to medicine, but really it takes all of us working together and collaborating really for individuals to meet comprehensive health. So I think that's important. So.
Yeah, and you mentioned you went back, I believe, for allied health. How has that enhanced your dental hygiene?
Well, a couple ways actually. So because when I went a long time ago, like I said, I don't want to mention that year again, but it was actually an associate degree program when I first went here, and we're actually a baccalaureate degree program now because we needed to move that way because that's where the profession's moving, and also it allows for a lot more opportunities for students when they graduate. I didn't have that bachelor's degree, so I felt the need to go back at the time. So I did that 2+2 to get that degree in allied health. Plus, I also had that interest in, again, epidemiology and also looking at how public health works within the rest of the system. So, so that actually helped me kind of get some of my first opportunities in education, and then also helped me prepare myself to execute research, because actually it's part of the allied health program as well, which we also do with our dental hygiene students now, that allowed me to go on for my graduate education, because I went to another place that actually, the school of dentistry, where I could have that graduate education that I needed, and very specific in dental hygiene. So
yeah, so what's interesting, I think, about your story, Jennifer, is that it wasn't just one big chunk of education, right? It was in pieces and parts.
Absolutely.
And I think sometimes, although we encourage our students that come to our office who are exploring, we encourage them to come up with a plan. But sometimes the plan has moving parts and pieces that will develop. And I see a lot of you kind of shaking your head in agreement with that. Is there anybody that would like to kind of expand on what Jennifer said in terms of something that shifted or an additional piece that you added on top of your career that moved you in a specific way?
I'll kick it off. So after I graduated the second time here, I actually worked for a prison system for 4 years as both a recreation professional and a education professional as a teacher for one of their programs. And that really shifted the way that I looked even at recreation. So I came out of college thinking recreation was eating right and lifting weights, essentially. But recreation is so much more than that. So someone, recreation is reading books or playing video games or watching movies or listening to music. It's so much bigger than that. And working at the prison really expanded my horizons in that mentality. So it was a shift, even though I knew I wanted to be in recreation, it was a shift of thought processes to see the education and the empowerment that she was talking about, relating that to other initiatives besides the typical physical activity and eating right. So yes.
And wellness could even be things like disc golf.
Right,
Yeah.
right. I know an amazing disc golf player that he probably should be on the national tour.
Oh, no.
So,
No, yeah. Every year I look in the mirror and I say, I'm getting too old. Oh my goodness. No, but Ryan and I work together on
Right.
some initiatives related to disc golf in the community and disc golf on campus. And disc golf, if you haven't heard of it, as a cheap plug, I suppose, it's like regular golf but with frisbees
Right.
instead. And that's
I like this
an
idea.
emerging sport
Right.
in the area.
And there's a great course up at Wick Park if you ever want to go. So
Right near campus.
Right
Right.
near YSU.
correct.
I'd like to throw it over to Hannah, right? Because I'd like to hear a little bit about your background. It relates to this conversation with exercise science and psychology. Was it a double major that you did? Is that
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Okay, so or a double degree actually, right?
Yep.
Because exercise science is a Bachelor of Science.
Bachelor of Science.
And then the psychology is a Bachelor of Arts. So you got double degree and the major with psych and exercise science.
Yeah.
How does that fit in?
So, I mean, although I was a student who's still continuing their education, right, didn't have that pause and then come back, there was a shift. So I started with exercise science, always knew I wanted to go into PT school to some capacity, whether it be here at YSU or within another university. As I went into the program, I also thought that I would just minor in psychology because to me, like what you have been saying, right, it's also mental and physical health. So I really wanted to make sure that I incorporated that, but also take into consideration some, patients who may have not even just a mental disability, but some neurological deficit to where I would have to, approach them at a different, angle. So I figured that adding on this psychology major would really incorporate that component into it, which it definitely did, going into the program right now, learning about all of the, mental health awareness and everything that's going on campus to help promote that. And that was definitely a little bit of a shift and an addition to, what I wanted to do and what I want to continue to do for physical therapy.
Yeah, so, in keeping with that idea and thought of the shift or, where you find yourself making those decisions, if you could kind of imagine yourself again as a student, and it's a little bit different, we know. Now the student is not only deciding what they want to do, they are deciding how they want to do that. And what I mean by that is there's a statistic from a webinar I recently attended that talked about how 1 in 4 jobs by the year 2027 can be and probably will be full-time done remotely. So, as you are advising, if you were to talk to Youngstown State University students now, and when you think of yourself on how you work productively, how would you talk to a younger student about discovering how they like to work and their preferences on that? So this is a big topic, remote work, flexible work. Can you talk a little bit about your experiences with that and how you realize which areas you prefer?
Well, I can speak to that a little bit, just because I think I would encourage students to be open to any type of opportunity, at least to experience it. Because for myself, I wear several other hats too. I guess I should have mentioned that. I am a textbook editor and author. I author one of the 3 international theory and practice textbooks in my field. So, and I'm a faculty expert and presenter for our national organization for their board review and other items. So all of that work was done remotely. And I collaborated with people all over the country, all over the world, actually. So, and that was something that, I had a little bit of adjustment, I guess, but I had a little bit of taste of it too, because at YSU, oddly enough, we had some of the, I want to say back in the day, that's probably not a good expression to use because it was older, but actually some of the allied health courses, there were some online components to them. So it kind of gave me a little taste of that. And I thought, okay, I can manage this with the right, with the right setup here. So I kind of was open to that, and that allowed me to kind of, embrace some of those opportunities, and they worked out wonderfully for me. So I would say being open to experiencing new things. If it's something you want to do, then get some mentorship on how you might do those things effectively too. Don't be afraid of things.
Jessica, am I right to say that was the social work master's that you did, was that fully online?
No, my program was not online. There
Okay.
were a couple of courses within that program that were online,
Okay.
but we were able to meet in person. But I will say, just to kind of piggyback with Jen, is that for me personally, I have always preferred in-person interactions, always. And so when I did my master's program here and we had an online course, I was obviously intimidated by that. And then once I graduated and worked somewhat in my field, I actually came back to teach my first course last semester, and it was designed to be in person, but my class wanted it to be virtual. And so I love the don't be afraid, because really I think for me it was more of a fear and comfortability, but we know that change and growth is uncomfortable at times. So I agree with just take a leap of faith, just even if it's for an experience, even if it's something outside your comfort zone, don't be afraid to try those things. With the remote work that you previously mentioned in your original question, my present situation is all in person. However, when we had our COVID pandemic at that start, we completely transitioned to remote work. So I didn't work in the office anymore. 5 days a week I was working from my couch or from my table, like a lot of other people, and that was a huge adjustment, but it's definitely something that we are trying to integrate now back into our normal functioning. So you're right, the remote thing is becoming a huge option for a lot of fields, and so I think for anyone who might have shied away from those things like I probably would have initially, it's really great to just try something new, because you never know, you might really like it.
Yeah, and with our professions too, I mean, there is an in-person component no matter
Correct,
with what we're doing. There definitely is, but I think with the way things have changed, you have a synchronous ability to interact with someone. It's no longer just, oh, I'm behind a computer screen typing away and this is all I'm going to get. So I think as that continues to evolve, the way we practice, I mean, I think of teledentistry and telehealth, the way we practice and the way we interact with people will have to continue to evolve. And I think, again, that's always my advice, is don't be afraid. You have to try it, right? So, yeah.
Okay, well, in kind of keeping with that talk on the community, Justin, I did want to mention, for any students or alumni that are listening, our office, along with the other career offices on campus, are partnering with JCPenney, and this Sunday from noon to 4 p.m. at the JCPenney Boardman location, there is an event that we are part of, and we will be there, called Suit Up. So it's an event that encourages students and alumni to join in, buying professional dress. We're there to answer questions on things like that. And there's a discount involved as well. So you could get up to 60% off with a coupon, and you do need to bring your YSU student ID. So that's a good example of another collaboration between offices and the community here.
And no matter when people listen to this in the future, Suit Up is something we do every fall and spring. Usually one's at the Boardman, JCPenney, and then one's at the
Eastwood Mall.
The Eastwood Mall, the Niles location. Took me a second to think of where
He's
that
still
was.
thinking about disc golf. That's why.
Yeah. That's right.
Well, and the professional branding, if you will, right? Building a professional image is sometimes something that I think students feel like is so far away, right?
Yeah.
The first year student, especially maybe if they're exploratory, working with us in those Y1500 classes, the last thing on the mind might be, what kind of suit or tie should I wear for an interview in the future? And maybe we can talk about that a little bit, just like professionalism and what that means in different fields, because I think it looks a little bit different in every college, certainly, right? We talk about the difference between creative arts and the Williamson College of Business in terms of kind of the cultural application of professional attire, but maybe we can spend some time on that. What does professionalism look like in an interview setting within your field, but then also more of like a day-to-day type of activity? Ryan's taking the mic. Perfect.
So it's funny you mention that. We just had this conversation with a student in campus recreation, really regarding what they're posting on social media.
Okay.
And some of the professionalism that's associated with that, and how employers could potentially look at that in the future. So making sure that they're posting the correct material or item or pictures that aren't going to be persuaded in one way or the other, things of that nature. But in campus recreation, we are a very laid back environment. We're very casual, but knowing that there is some hard work and initiatives that go into being casual and laid back and enjoyable. So employers still want to see someone attire-wise, obviously, for the interview to be in professional attire, business attire. But once you receive the position, you could be a little more laid back depending on the environment that you're in. So it's a gambit of things, but we have this conversation probably weekly or monthly, bi-weekly with students all the time, and it even stems into, not to get too far into the weeds, no pun intended, but we talk about marijuana usage for students.
Good analogy.
And how that could potentially affect your future because of either the legality of it or whatever profession you go into, and how that might affect you if you're going to be a teacher one day, things of that nature. So there's a lot to go into the professionalism, but you're right. Students don't see 5-10 years into the future. So
it's important to remember as first-year students that whatever we put on the Snapchat or the gram, which is I hear the way people, the cool way to say Instagram, you have to put a the in front of it.
Right.
Snapchat, the gram, whatever it might be. It's hopefully something that can help to align our professional and personal identity, and that's what I want people to strive for, is the further alignment of professionalism with just who you are on a day-to-day basis. I don't think it should be something that we have to
Separate.
completely switch on and off.
Right.
Yeah. But we can move the mic around. We'll swing it back to whoever else wants to take this. Just thinking about professionalism, attire, things like that.
Well, I just want to reiterate actually what Ryan was saying about social media. We actually have a lengthy discussion of it on that because we see patients here on campus. I don't know if anyone knows that. We have a dental hygiene clinic where patients can come from the community or students can come. So if you're a student here and you'd like to come have some free dental treatment, please come. But with that being said, we with as far as privacy of our patients, we start right out the bat kind of talking about that. And I can't stress you how important it is that that information follows you around for the rest of your life. So in a good way and a bad way. So I always recommend that our students have a positive social media presence, because in some ways they get opportunities that way. I mean, the same thing for me. I'll get opportunities because of what my LinkedIn profile looks like, or even my gram, So
So cool.
Yes, so cool. So, but that's important. But I would say the professional expectations for dentistry kind of align with medicine. You need to dress the part and look as professional as you can anytime you're presenting yourself to anyone. And as faculty members, we spend a lot of time talking to our students about that and kind of revving up that conversation, because we find sometimes students don't have access to the things they need. That's why the Suit Up event is such a wonderful event, because they're giving presentations. It's like, okay, let's maybe have a different discussion here about what kind of clothes we should select. So, and if you ever are curious about that, talk to your faculty members about that, because they can really kind of put you in tune with the ideals of your profession.
Yeah, and Justin, we would be remiss if we didn't mention our career closet.
Yes.
Hannah knows
I
about
know,
it.
I was gonna bring that up.
I think Hannah wants to give us the plug.
Yeah.
I was going to bring that up too, because I actually just took a couple of clothes because I went to the Suit Up event and I had older clothes, so I was rotating. This is one of them. It's very nice. But like the career closet. But I also want to say, and you guys can correct me, but Jones Hall also has a spot where you can practice interviewing, or I may have just heard that.
Well, so we have two things in Jones Hall that I think relate to this. So number one, we have the career closet. Again, it's donated items that students can take 100% for free to keep. It's not like a trade-in, bring it back, library card, we're going to come after you, right? It's just free clothes for students. We also do professional headshots there, which is really great. And then we do mock interviews.
Yes.
Yeah, so students can schedule those mock interviews. Really would probably largely be with Carla, maybe some with Rebecca, who's with us in the audience. But yeah, so students can absolutely practice those interview skills, or even, there's a difference between a mock interview where you're treating it like a real interview and practicing versus just coming to talk.
Right.
It's sometimes the value, I think, is more important just to have a conversation about what are the hard questions going to be, and let's talk like two humans to strategize.
Right.
Right? We can do both of those things. Yeah, absolutely.
And absolutely. I mean, I can agree, with professionalism. a lot of definitions for it, a lot of hats that you put on, but I think, being authentic is like the most important thing. And what you were touching on with like professional identity, I mean, even in my program right now, we're taking activities that we are doing, and we're looking to see what kinds of skills that we have, what we may be lacking, to try and see how we can improve and expand our professional identity. So there's stuff that we're currently doing, as students that, help us then transition into, the career field that we pick. But also on top of that, I just think that all of these opportunities that, they're giving, and that, the college is giving, and these, crazy interview questions that you may get, what's your spirit animal and why, right? I like stepped back and I was like, well, I don't know, but it could be something like that just absolutely shows the interviewer who you are as a person, just based off of that. Like, what kind of drink would you get at a bar was another one that I got, and I was like, oh, I have no idea, like, does he want to know? But and like, what does that even mean? How is that equivalent to who I am as a person? But just some examples of how that can really shape who you are as a person.
I think there's definitely a different person that orders like a dry martini versus
Yes.
If you can tell something there.
Yeah.
I've never heard that before, so maybe
Me either.
Well, my thoughts go to a couple things with that is emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
Because my undergraduate degree is in journalism, and I remember very clearly they always told us to ask the question, and people in class would say, well, no one's going to answer that, no one's going to tell us that. And what I remember the professor saying is it's not the answer they give, it's how they respond to the question. So your response to an awkward or maybe surprising question is going to show how you or a potential student is going to act in an awkward or surprising situation on the job. So we always, that's another thing that we talk about in our developmental courses within our office, emotional intelligence, which is also known, maybe sometimes as soft skills or things like that. But I love that example because it's so interesting. We used to prepare mock interviews with students, either the phone interview or the in-person. Now there's this third element. And a lot of students are doing their first round of interviews, through something like WebEx or Zoom. And believe it or not, I think there's a different preparation for each of those three. So again, utilizing your career office on campus, whichever one it may be, is important. But kind of in keeping in line with Justin's question, can anyone give an example of how they manage their social media presence? What they have, what they don't have, and why?
Well, yeah, very carefully. So I like to think that I speak for millennials just because I'm part of that younger generation, and we put so much value on social media, whether it's Snapchat or Instagram, whatever the case may be. We utilize those platforms very frequently, and we not only use them for networking and socializing with friends, but we use them a lot of the times as an interview, right? We don't even know that, but a lot of times employers are checking those backgrounds just to kind of see what type of things we're posting. And so personally on my Facebook account, I don't post that much. Generally I'm sharing things that I see other people post, but I'm very careful about what I post, like as far as political standing goes, because I don't then want to trigger an argument or something of that nature on my Facebook. If I am going out drinking, you might see a photo with a drink, but you're never going to see me out on a dance floor going crazy. And then I also keep a good balance of who I allow to follow me on social media. So on my Facebook account, I allow everyone from my office, whomever may request me, I allow them to follow me on Facebook because that's a platform where I do uphold my professional standards, and I'm very careful about what I post. On my Snapchat, that one's a little bit more private, and I utilize that one just for me. And so I may not allow those same people to follow me on Snapchat. Not that I'm posting anything that's inappropriate, but maybe something that they might not agree with, I know, so I just don't put myself in that situation, right? And the same with my Instagram account. So I think it's really just about being smart about what you post and thinking always, okay, how is this going to affect me from a professional standpoint?
Consider your audience.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think audience is really hyper important in, I'm going to speak broadly, the health and human services as a field, because it's so client, patient, whatever the language you're using, student in a higher ed environment, it's so kind of focused on relationships.
Right, it is.
Right?
Yeah.
Does anybody have a separate, like, work related, social media and then the personal, or do you just kind of manage it like Jessica was saying with, deciding on who you're going to include in that particular area?
So for mine, I do just have one account, but my name's not Jessica Williams on there. It's a completely different name. So if you search Jessica Williams, you're not going to find me. It's different, and it's because of the reason that we do have patients or clients who also utilize that, and I never want them to be able to find me because I don't want them to see me in a different light.
That's a great example.
It really is.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I was gonna say I have 2 Instagram accounts, but I have to be honest though. What I put on my personal account, I should say, it is still very much in line with my professional values. I think we get in awkward situations at times as healthcare professionals because people will solicit advice or treatment recommendations and things like that from us. At least I get that a lot, given the position I'm in. And I think you have to be careful not to necessarily offer advice because sometimes we're offering unlimited data, limited information, and you can't do that without that patient evaluation or that authority. So I think those kinds of situations, I think you have to be careful. And then if there is ever a concern, then you can always ask them to send you a private message or something like that. So to consider your reaction or response, because I think we live in a very emotional environment too right now. And going back to the advocacy component is that I think we also have a social responsibility to kind of support those values that we have in our profession. But right now, sometimes they're aligned with certain political philosophies that can be very polarizing, I guess. So I don't know. It's a fine line, but I think if you are kind of living up to your professional ethical standards, then you can do it.
Yeah, and Ryan, I was actually thinking of your role when Jennifer was talking. Do you think that if a student who's considering going into wellness or recreation, is there a difference? Because it's almost like it's a promotional, use of the social media, and you're
Right.
kind of seen as the person who's doing a little bit of that recruiting. How do you manage your social media?
I just do TikTok dances. That's it. So.
Well, that incorporates exercise, so that does make sense. So.
Right.
What is TikTok?
No, but you're absolutely right. I mean, we in wellness and exercise, we promote ourselves if we're offering those services, especially our group exercise instructors, our personal trainers. We're advocating them to advocate themselves on their platforms because that we know the demographic here on campus is going to respond well to that. So inviting their friends and colleagues to come to a Group X class is going to help recruit others to come to that class as well. But in the same token, then if they are advocating that, they can't be on the dance floor out on every Saturday posting pictures of themselves drinking and doing inappropriate behavior. So it's that fine line of making sure you can advocate for the right things but still be yourself, because that's the transparency is what responds well in our demographic on campus. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it's interesting that social media is becoming more and more connected to your field. So for
Correct.
example, if, like you said, if there's a promotions element to whatever your
Right.
role is of your field,
Right.
you may approach it differently as opposed to if you're dealing with children,
Correct.
like Jessica, or different types of clientele with a medical or health background. So for the students that are listening, whether you are health and human services or not, it's important to keep in mind now career, I would think, on that.
I think so. And we, as we get into the home stretch of our conversation, I think I'd rather leave a little bit more time than rush it at the end. I'd like to ask each of our panelists to think about, put yourself in the shoes of a student who comes to YSU and is exploring various majors, right? I'd ask you to kind of reflect for a second, then we'll go around and share. What kind of advice would you have for a student who is interested in pursuing the degree that you studied in your undergraduate, right? So exercise science, psychology, social work, so on and so forth around that. Again, thinking about at that first year, what kind of advice would you have for that student to help them explore those interests and refine that decision? We'll go in order. I'm gonna pull the mic all the way back to Hannah. And you can still take a couple seconds to think. I don't want to put you on the spot right
No,
away,
I
but
think
what
I got
advice
it.
do you have for that for that student?
I feel like I do this a lot with promoting with my major, but
Good.
with exercise science, I would advise the student to try and start doing some shadowing work. That was actually something that I did when I was a freshman. Thanks to the Honors College, I had to contract my exercise science course, and to add an extra component to the class, the professor had me actually go and shadow an athletic trainer, physical therapist, occupational therapist, exercise physiologist, etc. And when I went to go and explore those options, it actually helped me gear towards my connection with still wanting to be a physical therapist. So I think that going and just, getting your feet wet, introducing yourself to some people that are within that area of like the field, and being able to just see what their everyday looks like, I think that that's really valuable in understanding the importance of, how you will fit as a student and as a, employer in that situation. For psychology, I would like to say the same thing as well. There's definitely a lot of, experiences that you could do with like school psychology, maybe just, having any kind of career thing, here. I know that we've had a lot of alumni, like panelists, that have come and talked about their experiences. So just being able to actually see what's out there related to those fields and go and explore those.
So shadowing, hands-on, getting out
Yeah.
there and meeting people. I love those pieces of advice.
I love that too. I guess for me, like first starting out here, I always knew that I wanted to be a teacher, right? And so obviously that is not the profession that I ended up pursuing, but I was a part of the teaching program for my first 2 years. And so when I decided to make that switch to social work, there were some credits that didn't transfer. They weren't relevant to the social work field. So I think one thing that's super important is that even if you start off in one direction and you change your mind, that is okay. That is 100% okay to then say, you know what, this isn't for me, this isn't what I want to do in my career, and make that change. I think that's just so important, because there was for me some, apprehension of making that switch. Look at all the work that I've done, look what I'm going to miss out on. But at the end of the day, I'm so glad that I made that change, even though it, was kind of far into my education. The other thing that I really love that you said is getting that hands-on experience. One of the things that helped within the social work program is that you're required to have 40 hours of shadowing for one of your courses, and so you pick the agency that you want to go and shadow. And so if you're a part of the social work field and you're thinking, oh, I really want to work in child welfare, but then you do your 40 hours there and you're like, okay, this isn't for me, that's okay. One of the great things about the social work program is that it's a very it's a generalist major, right? So I pursued social work as my degree. However, I work in child welfare. You could work pretty much in any discipline. You can do mental health, you can do substance abuse, you can work in gerontology. It's just such a generalist field that you can pretty much work anywhere, which makes social work a pretty cool field, because you're not stuck to one set of skills, right? So you can kind of move around as you choose. So I think don't be afraid to change it. If you don't like it, if you start off and you think this is what I want to do, and then down the line you're like, you know what, I don't think this is it, make that change, and don't be afraid to do so.
Yeah. I think that's really important what you said too, because I think, you're talking about a lifetime here, a career, and it's, we all want to love what we do, right? And that truly is important. I think we can't stress that enough, how important that is to your wellness to get up and go to work, where something you love every day. I think I'm going to actually end up reiterating a lot of similar ideas, because, for example, to become a dental hygienist, it's very, we are highly specialized and unique, and I think that shadowing someone who is a dental hygienist would help people understand what we do, because there's quite a bit of misunderstanding of what we do in dentistry at the different levels. So I think we always recommend that the students do that. We also require observation hours to apply to the program. We're kind of in a different situation because we're a competitive program, because we're limited on our space at admissions because of our facility size and the ratios that we have to maintain for accreditation. With that being said, if you are shadowing and you really feel like this is the pathway for you, I would recommend you work very closely with your advisors. Oh, my stomach's growling, sorry. Work very closely with your advisors to determine if this is what you want to do, and then, work really hard to get those grades, because that does make a difference if you're looking at a selective program in this, because we're kind of in a different boat when it comes to that. But I like to kind of bring that up for the students. Yeah, so I would say, shadowing and the same thing, and talking to your advisors, and then also using the resources on campus. If it's something that you're interested in, and maybe you're not as strong in chemistry or biology, we do have resources on campus that you can reach out to for tutoring and things that will help you be successful in those courses. So
Thank you.
all right, Ryan.
Thank you. I 100% agree with all of you on these. So last but not least, I guess, is I think we talk a little bit about this, and to reiterate something, a lot of it comes down to passion. So as an employer, I can't teach passion. So you have to be passionate about your field, an aspect of your degree, something along those lines. So if you're not passionate about that, you probably won't, I don't want to say do very well, but not give your 110% effort that could be given if you're not passionate about it. So I think passion has to be involved first and foremost. I think also too, and I struggle with this because, again, I'm the old man and I talk to college students all the time, is the value of hard work. I think none of us were given anything. We all earned everything that we've done in our lives, whether it's through school or work, whatever the case may be, but there's value to that. There is definitely some aspects that we've all had challenges with that we've overcome and accomplished those hurdles, and now are better people for on the other side of it. So I think there's value to that, and explaining that to a incoming freshman sometimes is a little challenging in and of itself because they don't see the value in accomplishing those hurdles. But knowing that you will come out a stronger person on the other side of it will go a long way.
Yeah, work ethic never goes away, does it, Justin? That's one thing.
Work ethic will always be something that we need to continue to refine in our career, and just the way that we want to encourage students to be lifelong learners. We have to be lifelong. We have to build lifelong awareness of, again, that brand and who we
Correct.
are and how we interact with people in our workplace.
Yeah, and what I like about what you just said, Brian, is work ethic is now part of your professional branding, because if that's something that you believe in, you exude that, and that's something we want our students to do too. But Justin, I think this was a good, kind of reflection on health and human services, and we would just like to thank all the panelists here today for joining us in our Career Conversations podcast. So thank you to everybody. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. We'd like to thank our partners as well with the Bouncing Back Grant, the Office of Alumni Engagement,
Yes.
and then all of the other staff that work with us, Carla in the Office of Career Exploration and Development. So we look forward to more of these throughout the week. And again, just thanks again for being here today. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.